Hey, what's up? It's Bon. Let's talk about Mass Effect. So this is another video in an ongoing series where I'm talking about in 7-day things that we found out or saw or thought were teased. And I kind of do a deep dive into little parts of that day because the coverage by myself and a lot of people was very meta, very high level, hitting everything a little bit. So this episode, we are going to be talking about one particular piece of concept art that honestly would have been pretty easily lost if you weren't paying super close attention. So here you see on the screen the blog from N7Day. And, you know, we've talked about a few of these things already, or we will later on. We had some concept art, some nice words, some awesome people who are making this next game. We had, you know, a cool little thing here, which I actually am going to talk about this later. I think there may be something hidden in that picture, but then we get here. So I remember when this initially came out, I saw the blog, you know, hit the big things. Like obviously everyone, you know, got to the bottom and watched this video and, you know, things went crazy from there. But there was a little detail right here that I don't think people talked as much about as I think maybe it deserved. So that's what we're going to do right now. If you like Mass Effect, you want Mass Effect videos, down below, subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment with what you think down below about what we talk about. I want to hear from you. I want you to be around. This is 50 plus videos on Mass Effect, and there's many more to come. So let's talk about it. So this is the image, greatly expanded, that I want to talk about today. And, you know, we are doing all of this speculation and guessing and trying to figure out what the next game is going to be about. Not because we need to, but because it's fun, right? And so I have a pretty long-standing, and I'm pretty serious about it, theory that I think the next game is taking place fairly shortly after Mass Effect 3. I think they're going to canonize the Destroy ending, and I only feel that way, not because I think it's the best decision, even though I think in some ways it is, but just from what we've seen. That's what is clicking in my brain. So what do we see in this art or in this image that I pulled from the blog? Well, we obviously see the Citadel, the center of the galactic, you know, the galaxy, the government and all of that. And we see and we don't see a few things. So we see the obvious shape of the Citadel. Now, when I talked to N7 Legend on our most recent chat that I put out as a podcast, he pointed out that there's no presidium here in the middle. There's also like no buildings and no other details. So I'm not necessarily going to be super locked in on that. But there is one detail about this that I think is extremely important and that there may be a lot of discussion to have about it. And what it is here on the right. If you see the mouse, I am hovering over it. It is this orbital body. And the reason this is significant is when I click through some of this art here, this is the Citadel in its pre Mass Effect 3 ending state. So this is in the system it's in during all 3 games besides the end of 3 when it goes to Earth's system. And what it is it's a nebula, I believe. And one of the two very notable things about the Citadel's location through the first 3 games is that there's no planets in that system, and it has this very beautiful kind of glow around it in the star that's in the middle of the system. And you know, we see this, it's one of the notable things. It's one of the defining things about the Citadel. All 3 games have that first moment that you enter the Citadel space, and it's always this like kind of awe-inspiring moment. It always has beautiful music and a cool cutscene. And what's notable about this art from the blog is that there is a planet, or there is a body. And my speculation, without any further ado, and you've already seen some of my other tabs, is that this is the moon. I believe this is Earth's moon. At the end of Mass Effect 3, no matter what you do, the Citadel is in Earth's star system, and it's orbiting Earth, and it's actually attached to Earth via a tractor beam transportation thing. We can see that in this picture, even though I'll have more to say about this later. And so this is important, I think. While there may not be much detail in the art, this thing is intact. And I don't have a picture of it, but after, I believe, all of the endings, but especially the Destroy ending, which I think they're going to canonize, the Citadel is in various states of distress. And so I click on this. This is, I think, a good shot to look at because it's a similar angle. But here we see all of the buildings and all of that, and we see the Presidium in the middle. And this is in the old star system. This is not when it's orbiting Earth. But here, this is when it's at Earth. And this is its destroyed state. So it's this particular art has all 5 arms together. I believe at the end of the Destroy ending, one of the arms does come off, at least one. And here we don't see that. Here we see it's not missing big chunks. It seems like it's pretty intact besides the missing Presidium. I also think it's, you know, the moon here is this is not where the Citadel has ever been before, basically, guaranteed. Now, we can't obviously see the Earth in the background here. When we look at this art, when we look at this art and this art, these two things are from the end of the last part of the cinematic of the Destroy ending, when you see that the Citadel is back in one piece. You see that tractor beam is still attached to London. You know, it's obvious that Earth is there. In this picture, it isn't so obvious. I mean, that's maybe what this big cloudy thing is in the background. But I've seen people say, like, oh no, this is still where the Citadel always was, or maybe they moved it back. But that star system has no planets or no moons or anything. So I think it's really notable. I think it's really interesting to think about and talk about. And I think for me, it's just another little tick on the boxes of things that are suggesting to me the Destroy ending being canon in some capacity. Now, when it comes to time frames, that's a wild card, right? There's people who think this game is going to take place hundreds of years later. There's people like me who don't. And I think that when you see an intact Citadel being teased, I think the first instinct is, oh, well, this must take place many, many years later, because the Citadel would take decades to put back together. And that may not necessarily be true. Something that we learned through the series is that even when the Citadel is damaged and potentially, you know, significantly damaged, it gets put back together pretty quickly. And that's because of the Keepers. Now, the Keepers are, I think, a really interesting thing that I really hope that they use to explain a lot of stuff in the next game. The Keepers were not under the control of the Reapers anymore. We know that from Vigil and the Protheans, and we learn that they are independent and that they seem to be basically part of the Citadel. And when humans or other species would try to do repairs and do things in the Citadel, the Keepers would essentially replace what they did and do it better. And they would do it basically mysteriously. And they would do it when no one was paying attention. And they would do it very quickly. So my assumption is that maybe with a little assistance, the Keepers would probably have the Citadel back together and working again in pretty short order. You know, months, maybe a few years, which when we look at some of the clues about when the game may take place, 4 or 5 years after Mass Effect 3, that seems like a incredible but reasonable amount of time that maybe the Keepers could do their magic and put the whole thing back together. I also think the whole thing here, that the whole idea of the Citadel being back in order, being attached to Earth directly, and this probably being a transportation beam. For me, that brings up so many really interesting stories when it comes to power vacuums, power kind of balance, and things like that. If the Citadel is in the Sol system, attached to Earth, the human home planet, that's, you know, the Citadel was always in its own star system, which made it almost like a neutral location. Well, if the Citadel is going to be attached to Earth, it's, you know, that's going to very much bias things towards the humans. Not to mention it was a human who orchestrated the defeat of the Reapers. And I really think that even in the voice message we got from Liara, in this blog that we got from this video down here, I really believe that there's the next game is going to focus a lot on like animosity from the non-human species. The humans maybe getting a little big for their britches and getting a little cocky about what they've done, about the location of the Citadel, and so on and so forth. I think this art, even though it was basically just meant to be a little tiny thing that maybe we weren't really supposed to glean much from, I think there's a lot to talk about with it. So that's what I have to say about it. I'm really interested to hear what any of you think about all this information I talked about. Maybe there's more I didn't cover, so please let me know down in the comments. I'm very comment active, so if you propose something or have your own ideas or have thoughts yourself, I will probably reply, unless you're mean, and then I'll just delete it because that's how I roll. So there's that. I have 3 or 4 more videos planned in this series, so expect to see those as we go through the holiday season, or if you're seeing this you know, after that, I suspect these videos will be come back to as we learn more information. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave your thoughts down below, subscribe to the channel, like this video. I have lots more Mass Effect stuff coming. You can find me on Twitter, for now at least, as Bond Diesel, as well as Bond Diesel almost everywhere. You can check out my podcast called The Echo Cast, which is a weekly gaming podcast where I talk about news and reviews and speculation. I always try to find a reason to talk about Mass Effect as well, so you can help me by asking questions related to that if you want. And that's all I have for this one. So until next time.